Now to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Simon Coveney. Minister, good morning.
Good morning.
It could be a significant day. The box is just opening there, as we were hearing across the north. Do you have any optimism that a government can be formed at Stormont when the election results are all in?
Well, honestly, I think it'll be difficult because this has been a difficult election, and indeed we've seen for a number of years now a lot of polarisation on certain issues within Northern Ireland politics, particularly linked to the aftermath of Brexit, the implementation of the protocol in Northern Ireland, difficulty with agreeing a way forward on how to deal with the legacy of the past, and of course we also have the added complication now of a potential, at least, change, if you like, in the pecking order in terms of the possibility of a nationalist party having the highest percentage of the vote and the highest number of seats, although that's far from certain, and we'll have to wait and see what unfolds in the coming hours and days. I don't think we'll know for sure, probably until some stage tomorrow afternoon, when all the final seats have been filled. So, this is going to be a very long and I suspect tense count because things are changing in Northern Ireland. I think the one thing we know for sure is that the Alliance Party is going to almost double its vote in terms of percentage, which is significant. I think most people would accept that. Well, perhaps not double, but certainly significant increase. But after that, it's really hard to know. I mean, Sinn Féin have been polling very well, but even on their polling numbers, they still are facing a reduction in their numbers in all likelihood from the last election in percentage terms, perhaps not in seat terms.
In terms of forming an executive, though, I mean, doesn't the fundamental problem remain that the DUP says it will only enter an executive if all of the parties agree that the Northern Ireland Protocol be removed or replaced?
Well, look, I mean, the DUP have said various things about the protocol during this election campaign, and my job and the job of the British government and the job of the European Commission is to try and find a way of settling the protocol issues so that we can implement the protocol in the way that it was designed, but with a maximum flexibility to take into account the concerns that many people have had in relation to the protocol, and many in the Unionist community have been offended by. And I'm working hard on that. I've already spoken to Liz Truss in the last couple of days. I spoke to Brandon Lewis yesterday, and we expect to be speaking to each other a lot in the coming weeks, and of course working with all of the parties in Northern Ireland. This isn't going to be easy, and agreements like this don't happen quickly. As we know, in Northern Ireland, the last time the executive collapsed, it took us 3 years to put it back together, and the issues we had to deal with weren't as complicated as these ones. So we've got a lot to do this summer, but I think people in Northern Ireland expect politicians to respect democracy, the results of this election, and they want devolved government functioning and working, solving problems. I mean, the one thing we do know from the electorate in Northern Ireland is that the protocol was not the number one issue in this election, far from it. And so it's issues around health, cost of living, decent jobs, housing, all the things that families expect their politicians to be on top of.
Can I just pick up on something you said there?
We can't respond to those issues if we don't have a functioning government in Belfast.
Can I just pick up on something you said there? You mentioned that you'd been speaking to both Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, and to Liz Truss. There have been conflicting signals of late, as you know, about what's likely to happen in the coming days, whether or not the British government will again signal its intention to suspend parts of the protocol. Did you ask them about that, and what have they been saying to you?
Oh, I asked them very directly about that, as you'd expect. I mean, I think if the British government were to unilaterally set aside elements of the protocol, it would cause significant problems, not only in Northern Ireland and of course in Dublin, but also in and across the European Union. Let's not forget, we have a an international treaty, which is international law, which has as part of it the Protocol on Northern Ireland, which of course was designed and ratified and agreed by both the British government and the EU to manage the disruption of Brexit on the island of Ireland in order to protect the peace process. We know that the implementation of the protocol is complex and needs more flexibility than has been available to date.
So what have they said to you then about this? I mean, is it likely to be mentioned in the Queen's speech next week? Because a lot of speculation has centred around that.
Well, what both the Foreign Secretary and the Secretary of State have said to me is that they want to try to reach a negotiated agreement and solution with the European Commission. That's what we want as well, and that's what I'm working towards. I speak to Maroš Šefčovič, who's the key negotiator on the EU side, a Vice President of the European Commission on a weekly basis practically, and we'll continue to talk on that. But, we've got to try to do this within the parameters of the legal agreement. That is the EU and the Irish position, and it's very clear. We want the maximum flexibility possible to recognise, for example, that we need to make a distinction between goods that are being purchased and consumed in Northern Ireland versus goods that are coming in from Great Britain that have the potential to travel on into the EU. We can create, in my view, compromise agreements that many people in Northern Ireland, and certainly the business community in Northern Ireland, I believe, can support. So we need to move away now from absolutist positions towards compromise and centre ground, where the Irish government is working in partnership with the British government and with the European Commission. That's the approach we're trying to take, and I hope that'll be replicated in London as well.
On another matter in the news over the past few days, it's been widely reported that you're seeking to boost the size of the defence forces. Now, the